What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Commander, for the people, by the people, for the people. My name is Ryan. This is episode 46. Welcome to the show. We've got a very special guest lined up for you today. I want to get right into it, but before we do, big shout out to official sponsors of the show, FusionGamingOnline.com. They are there for all of your gaming needs, and they do ship to you or myself very quickly. If you wanted to order cards from them, or if you wanted to order and have them sent to me for some form of alteration, we can work something out. Shoot me a tweet at cadpopcast at gmail.com, or get a hold of me on Facebook through the Commander Ad Populum page. And of course, big thank you to all of the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/cadpopcast. Couldn't make it possible without any of your guys' support. You do make it fun, interesting, possible, all of the things that are required to keep the podcast afloat. I haven't said it for a while, but it does really take a village or a community to keep a podcast afloat. So thank you all for the support. And of course, if you're not ready to become a patron yet, you could always start a conversation with your play group or at your LGS and tell me about it, or share some story of where Magic has helped you, or you've found comfort or solace or some outside of the game connection with Magic. I like hearing about that stuff, and I like to feature it on the show. So shoot it into any of the social media coordinates. And without further ado, let's get to my special guest right now. Okay, we are back, and I'm here with my good friend, Zack Taylor. Zack, tell everybody where you're from, what you do, and why they should care.
Hey, what's up, Ryan? I'm co-host of a small podcast called Commander Social. We're about fostering community, doing charity, and things like that. So you should definitely check us out if you're into two guys just being guys and messing around and talking about Magic. Basically, it's just two friends hanging out. So, and we happen to record it. So, yeah, if that sounds good to you, you should check it out.
For sure. And I'll have links to, of course, your guys' individual Twitters and the show Twitter and the YouTube channel in all of the show notes, so everybody can easily find those. So
yeah, if you want to find me, I'm at Z4CK38. I remember the 38 this time.
That's right. So you and I were talking off air before the show and over the last week or 2 weeks about just some general conversation and stuff that we've noticed on Twitter. Things like, you know, somebody would shoot us a tweet or something, or say something like, hey, I noticed that you guys talk about having, you know, that pregame talk, that Rule Zero talk, but when I go to my LGS, I never see it happening. Is that something that is localized kind of to your area, or is that something that like people just don't do?
Honestly, to me, I feel like people try to do it, but I think it happens way less than it should. And the reason that I've theorized that this is at least for me, having the talk could be hard, is just general anxiety. Like, I definitely have, and I've talked about it on our show too, but like, I have an anxiety issue. It's like a generalized social anxiety thing. And you know, when you're playing with people that you don't necessarily know, it's kind of hard to be like, hey, let's have this talk, because it can feel like there's the fear that it turns into a confrontation, right? Where you're like, my deck's casual, but like I'm running Mana Crypt. Oh, that's not a casual deck. And then like you gotta talk it out, and you know, maybe you don't end up playing the same deck that you originally planned to, because people are playing, you know, higher or lower power or whatever. So I think it happens. I know it's hard.
So I think what you're talking about is like, if you go to a new local gaming store, or you're part of a new group, you go to a MagicFest, or like something where you're not just showing up at a buddy's house to play some games on Tuesday, right? Like,
exactly.
If we sit down together, like if you and I sat down and Ryan and Brando, and we all know each other and we're familiar with each other's decks, we'd say, well, what are you playing? Oh, Yawgmoth? Yeah, I got Hogak. You got Norin. You got whoever. It's like, oh yeah. And we just like adjust the decks accordingly, because we all have a couple decks and we all kind of know what each other's kind of strategies are. I want to avoid saying the words power level, because
it's so subjective.
Yeah, and over the last little while, people have got fallen into this terrible habit. I'm going to call it a terrible habit of saying, oh yeah, a 5 or a 7 or a 9. And that just doesn't make any sense. It's all about what the deck does and how it wins and how quickly it wins. And that's, I think, sometimes why it's challenging is those are the types of things that we have to articulate to each other. And when you have some social anxieties that might prevent you from doing that, or if you're a new player or you are unable to articulate for whatever reason, then you might find yourself paired up in a non-optimal pod.
Right. And where some of the anxiety can also come from is like, so say I'm playing a much more like a strong combo deck, like a pretty powerful deck, right? And I sit down with some people and maybe this is my only deck, right? And I sit down with some people and, they're playing like precons, right? It's like, well, honestly, I should probably not play at this table. And like either telling someone that's doing it or excusing yourself. I think that can be anxiety having. Like I played a game recently where there was a misunderstanding about the power level of one person's deck, and we were playing, and one person just straight up said, "Hey, this isn't for me. Nothing against you guys, no problems. I just, I don't. This isn't the kind of game I want to play, and I'd rather, spend my, you get however many hours you get at the game store. It's a limited number, and I'd rather spend this time, playing a game that's my speed." And I thought that was, when that person did that, I was like, oh, that was pretty brave. Like, that's not something I would know if I could do. I may just like sit through it and deal with it,
Yeah, and when you say brave, I would add that it's also appropriate. And it doesn't actually matter if the player that you're talking about was playing a deck that is too powerful for the rest of the pod or not powerful enough for the rest of the pod. They did something that was brave in speaking up to their friends or strangers, saying, hey, this isn't the appropriate speed, power level, what have you, and would you please let me bow out of the game without kind of giving any offense?
Right. And yeah, it's a cool thing to do, and it's definitely something that I think about when I play. Like it's pretty not often that I get in a situation like that, but like if I were to, I think about like, well, would I do that? And I'd like to think that I would. Like, I don't know. Magic's definitely like helped me a lot with social anxiety, like overcoming things like this and whatnot.
In what way do you mean?
Well, I mean, Magic's a social game, right? And even when I was like doing the grinding or whatever, I had to like meet people. I had to go out and meet people who were, also doing the same thing for practicing and whatnot. And, that was, at the time, that was outside like my general boundaries. And, I stretched my boundaries to that. And then, you go to GPs or whatever to play, and you're having to play people you don't know. And that was a further stretching, right? And then the next step was, I started playing EDH with Ryan's play group. I knew Ryan, but I didn't know all of his friends, and that was like stretching it. And then eventually it was like, well, doing the podcast, and I had a lot of anxiety about starting the podcast, but and I told Ryan, like, I was like, look, like, I'm willing to do this like on a provincial basis, but like if I like just can't handle the anxiety from it, I'll stay till you can find somebody new. But that, thankfully, that didn't happen. That like, pushed my boundaries more. And then, I keep pushing them with things like going to MagicFests. I talked about that on Twitter, right? Like that's was outside of my comfort zone. And, I go and, I put on a brave face and do the best I can. And sometimes, I gotta like get up and just like walk around and kind of decompress, but it's a big deal, and it's emotionally tiring. But like overall, I definitely say it's all been totally worth it. Like I've met amazing people. Vegas was a great time when we all hung out there, and I talk to people on the internet now. It's legit.
A couple takeaways that the kind of keywords that I cue onto when I talk to people, or when I used to do job interview type things, or when I spoke in front of people at my old work. You had said that it's all worth it. So at some point you made the decision that you're gonna start playing Magic, and it's fun. So then you start playing Commander, this even more social format. You found, oh, it's fun. You start doing this podcast. Oh, it turns out that it was fun. You go out to a MagicFest and it was fun. All things have led to a net positive and fun experience, and something that I've been harping on and trying to really put forward as a way of thinking to my listeners in the last month is deciding and just going and making it happen, right? As soon as you can decide, I'm sure that you can attest to making the decision to put your foot in the door of the podcast. As soon as you put your foot in the door, okay, well, I'm here. Let's see how it goes. Well, I'm already here. Let's see if I can make the best of it. Well, I'm already sitting down with this pod. Well, I've already decided that I'm going to do this, so I might as well just see if it's going to be fun. And I promise you listeners out there that if you are somebody that deals with some form of general anxiety, social anxiety, any types of fears that are related to anxiety, it's worth it if you go and decide that you're going to have a fun time.
Yeah, like I definitely agree. These are all decisions that I had to make, and despite like the issues that I have, I try to be like just a relentlessly positive person. So I make the decision to like, start practicing with a team of people I don't know for Magic, and I'm going to make the best. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to make the best of it. And I'm going to give it my all, right? And I did, and it worked out, and then that's just what I've continued to do throughout my life, and not just in Magic. Magic's just been an avenue that's helped me, but at work there are times I just have to step outside my comfort boundaries and say I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it my all, and if I get there, I get there, and if I don't, well, at least I tried, right? Like there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the thing is, it's like you just have to try. If you fail, you just have to try again and keep making that decision to keep trying. I think that's real important.
Yeah, the decision, right? Like you just have to just do it, because the decision is like the threshold. And as soon as you cross it, then that's it, right?
Yeah.
So you brought up your work. What do you do for work? Just generally. You don't have to tell me who you work for, but just generally so that people know what you do.
I work in... I'm kind of a customer care for a project management SaaS product, which what I do is customers send in stuff, and like I check and make sure it's not like a defect, or they like are trying to find a way to do a certain thing within the software. I help them with that, or if they can't figure out, they do that. I'm also in charge of something called single sign-on for my product. I'm the SME for that, and I am in charge of setting that up with our customers. So yeah, I definitely work with people, and it used to be easier or I always thought it was easy because I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm on the phone and I don't have to like do it. And now I'm not even on the phone. It's just email. It was hard at first to like communicate, but once I realized how to communicate with people at this level, and realized, I'm actually doing good by helping these people, right? Like it got to be something that I, found satisfaction in through my job is, maybe someone's just having a terrible day, and like, they're like, oh, I just need to get this one thing done in this product, and I don't know how to do it, or it's not working the way I wanted it to. And, if I can help them, that's awesome. Like, maybe that makes their day just completely better. And, to be able to do that, I think is an awesome, not responsibility, I want to say, awesome privilege to have.
Yeah, and you know what? If we can flip that back into a Magic context, I'll use the word responsibility. It is our responsibility as experienced players or people who produce content that talk about the game, that can articulate the game to people audibly. It is our responsibility and privilege to communicate effectively to these people who maybe can't, maybe they're new to the game, maybe they're not skilled in communications. Like you had said, you had to learn how to communicate either on the phone or via email. Yeah. It is our responsibility to help these people, and maybe somebody is having a bad day. Maybe somebody just got rocked by Gitrog combo because they were in the wrong pod. Maybe somebody did show up to pub stomp somebody, and through effective communications before the game, we can make a better experience for all, us, them, and the other 2 players at the pod.
I mean, I would say that for Commander Social, Ryan is like he's like the doctor, right? And he's like, I know everything about Magic. I'm real good. And I'm like the doctor's companion who everyone else lives vicariously through. And they're like, who asks the questions and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not that smart, but I'm here. What's up? But I have good intentions. But like, I do my best to like represent, not everyone's going to be super good at Magic, right? And that's okay, right? Like, I don't always win. It's fine. And like you said, I think it's our responsibility to, communicate what we can to listeners to help make the community more positive and, help people get along better. Like, that's one of the reasons we called the podcast Commander Social, is because we wanted to help people, have a social experience that's good.
So a couple things. We're talking about communication. We're talking about sitting down, being face-to-face with people. I talk about and have written about maybe trying to steer away or avoid or abandon that power scale, that numbered power scale. And I try to ask questions about how quickly a deck can win, what types of cards, not what cards, but what types of cards do you use to employ your strategy? What kinds of questions do you ask when trying to figure out the appropriate games or decks to play in games with people out in the random or out in the wild, people that you don't know?
Usually I'll be like, okay, like, what turn does your deck usually win on? Are you running tutors, other things like that? I'm trying to think what else we ask. That's mostly it. And it's like, well, is there anything like, do you win by like combos or like creatures? And a lot of times when we do this, have this talk, I'll let people look at my deck and be like, hey, what do you think about this deck? Does it seem like the speed of deck same as yours? Like, if not, like, let me know. Like, I totally don't care what deck I play. I want you to have a good experience playing. So I'm invested in making sure that my deck doesn't prohibit that from happening. And it's worked.
Like, you just give them your deck?
Yeah, I've done that before. I did it last Thursday.
That's cool.
Yeah, because like, honestly, like, my decks are weird and they do weird stuff, and like, sometimes I'll explain why it does, and they're like, and I let them look through it, because I'm not trying to hide anything. Like, if I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win. If I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna lose. Like, them knowing what's in my deck, one, they're not gonna. Well, if they're like me, they're not gonna remember a whole lot of cards, but two, like, maybe it gives them a little bit of an edge, and that helps too. Like, I don't care. It's fine. There's literally no better way to describe my deck than be like, hey, why don't you look at it?
That's actually a new one. That's something that you don't hear a lot of people talking about or writing about, is actually just handing over your deck. A lot of the times it's like, I don't want to give anything away, and neither do they, so we just kind of skirt around the how do you win, what turn do you win on, how many tutors. Like, we kind of ask questions to kind of get an idea. What if everybody just gave their decks to the other players, right? Now, of course, we'd run into the people that are like, oh, no, my deck's worth $4,000. I don't want somebody touching it, right? But those are generally the people that know what power level of pod they should be playing
for
in.
Sure.
And if they're asking this type of question, right, like, they don't actually need to, because they're at the wrong table and their intentions are not quite the same as the other players. But giving your deck to other people and just letting them look at it, that's cool.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't even think the price, for me, and with the price the cost of the deck or the value of the deck doesn't even really factor in for me. I'm just like, I watch people, obviously, but my decks average between like $800 and $1,200-ish, right? Like, that's not an inconsequential amount, and I'm not trying to like brag about that, but I'm like, yeah, I'd rather you just look at it like it's just cards, whatever. I don't feel like people are gonna steal anything, and if they do, like, well, that happens, and I was trying to be a good guy, so I'm not too bothered by it, unless it's my Cyclonic Rift, and then we get real mad. I'm just kidding. I just love that card.
Yeah, you know how people get though, right? Like,
yeah.
The type of person who's they're gonna sleeve up perfect fit and then put in a binder their Gaia's Cradle and proxy it in like 10 different decks because they don't want to damage it by shuffling it when it's in 3 sleeves. You know the type of person.
Yeah, I know about those guys. Yeah, I just learned about triple sleeving this week, and I was like, why would you do that? 3 sleeves? Like, It feels like a lot.
Lots of people do the trolley like top loader sleeve deck, and then they make their deck like 14 feet high, right? The key is to if you're gonna like you get a sleeve, whatever kind, you get a penny sleeve and put it over top of your commander. So then you can put this is my secret tech for everybody, by the way. You can put a penny sleeve over your commander sleeve, and then it avoids putting it in a top loader to like differentiate it so you don't shuffle it in, because top loaders don't necessarily fit in every kind of deck box.
Right.
If you do have to like bounce it to your hand, it's still in the same color sleeve. And if you do shuffle it in at the end of the game, when you square your deck up, like when you brick it up to put it in your deck box, you can feel that penny sleeve is a different dimension, so you can pull your commander out and you never shuffle it in by accident again. That's my secret tech for the week, everybody.
That's a pro tip, man. I may have to start doing that, because I just like straight up use a different color sleeve for my commander. Like, they know if they know it's in my hand, they know it's in my hand. I don't care. Like, they're like, oh, is it like fourth from the right? Or,
yeah.
I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. I saw Joe did this thing to me, and we thought he was like messing around. Like, we thought it was a joke, but he did it intentionally, but he thought it's how he was supposed to do it. So, perfect fits go slot down or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He was helping me sleeve a deck, and he put them all in slot up, and we were like, dude, what the heck? And he was like, what? I thought, because he uses side loader perfect fits, and then like I was like, bro, don't use those. And he's like, why? I was like, dude, because that corner, man, like, water can get in there. He's like, why would I have water in my magic table? And I was like, okay, fine, you got me.
Oh, no.
Joe Hoffman. Yeah. Yeah. He said, like, he literally thought that's how it was. And I was like, oh, man.
He's just
so we had to, like, fix
a troll. He put them all downies instead of uppies. No.
Yep, that sounds right.
Man, that's Ginger Joe on Twitter, right? Except the O in Joe is a 0 because he puts his perfect fits on the wrong way. Yeah, every time I come up with a new reason that O is a 0. Every time I talk about this guy.
Yep, I love it.
Mind you, I think I'm staying with him in Anaheim at MagicFest Anaheim. Are you coming to that? I know we're off topic now, but I like just talking to you now.
I don't know. I'm not sure what MagicFest we're going to. Honestly, are there ever going to be MagicFests again with the coronavirus? I don't know.
That is a real thing we're dealing with. You know what? I've got an episode kind of planned for that, but I'll preview a little bit of it for right now for all the Magic people out there. Please just be careful when you're out in public. If you're going somewhere where travel is ill-advised, maybe just don't go there. Remember to wash your hands, wash your face, don't touch stuff. That's just a preview of what you're going to be bombarded with over the next month. So take care of yourselves, people.
I've made this joke for a while. I don't think I've told you about it yet, but I was like, yeah, so what I'm going to do is get like a respirator, and I'm going to like send it to CC Orion and be like, hey, can you like paint this thing up to look all cyberpunk and whatnot? So then I could wear it out, and people are like, oh, why are you wearing that? I'm like, oh, it's cosplay.
Yeah, that's going to be the next thing, man. That's going to be, you know what, I'd troll you back and send it back as like Scuba Steve or something.
I'd be okay with that. I'd wear that too. I'll cosplay Scuba Steve. Word.
So do you have something in mind?
Yep.
Okay.
It'd be good.
Okay, Zach, before we wrap it up, last tweetable message, the take-home message. If somebody out in listener land, audience land as you guys call it on your show, if anybody's heading out to their first Magic Fest or a new playgroup, new local game store, if they are people that deal with any sort of social anxieties, what do you tell these people? What is the take-home message for these people?
I mean, I feel like half the battle's already been won and that you've made the decision to go to one of these events. But I would say just go and give it your all. And, people that I've dealt with at Magic Fest have generally been pretty nice. I mean, universally been pretty. I haven't met anybody at a Magic Fest. And then also know that, after a game, if you need to step away and kind of recollect yourself and, do some mental wellness type stuff, like, do that. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I definitely do it. If you see me, like, wandering around a Magic Fest by myself, that's what I'm doing. I mean, obviously still can be like, what's up? But like, yeah, so that would be my recommendation is just, go expect to have a good time. I think you will, and know it's cool to like take breaks if you need to get away from some people to calm yourself.
That's beauty. You know what? I think everybody actually needs breaks because you're surrounded by lots of people, especially at those big events. They're 3 or 4 days, right? You need breaks, and there's plenty of stuff to look at. There's always food on site, and you can go and have something to eat. Take a look at some of the super baller showcases, or like the old Magic pins from the 90s. I know lots of people are into those, right?
Yeah, I'm into those.
That's it. That's why I knew you liked the pins. Last thing that I'd like to say on the topic today is if you are struggling with that and you are at an event, local game store or otherwise, you can talk to a judge. They are there to help you in whatever way, shape, or form they can. If you need help finding a pod, if you need help with pairings, sitting down, finding an appropriate level of competition because you're newer and you don't know the questions to ask, there's other people like you, and the judges can help find those people, and you can sit down and all have a good time. And you know what? That's how some of the best friends are made. I made friends with a guy the first year that I went to MagicFest Vegas, and we've met up ever since and become friends on Facebook, and like we're friends now. All right, and that's how that kind of stuff happens, is like Zach says, going out and deciding to go.
Yeah, I agree. And like, you know, if you're like gearing up to do any of these type of things, like, definitely hit me up on Twitter if you need somebody to talk to. It's at Z4CK38, or I'm sure you can hit up Ryan. He'd be happy to talk to you about it as well. You know, just more tips or whatever everybody needs. Like I'm always happy to talk to people about that kind of thing.
100%. All of the social media coordinates for myself and Zach, Commander Social, CAD Popcast, they're all going to be in the show notes below. But one more time real quick for everybody who doesn't or is driving, walking, can't check them right now, where can they find you?
You can find me at Z4CK38, and if you want to check out Commander Social, we're at Commander Social.
You're on different podcatchers. You're on YouTube, Twitter, and of course, all of those places are very welcoming because you and Ryan do an excellent job of community wellness, community promotion, and I very much like being a part of your guys' community. And of course, we do have a lot of overlap. The people that listen to your show do listen to this one, so they're getting a double hit of you or I this week. So we very much appreciate all the people out in the community.
Absolutely. Like, I definitely loved hanging out with you and Brando and in Vegas. We're gonna do that rotisserie again.
Oh yeah,
and that rotisserie job.
I already have my first pick. I already know what my first pick is.
Is it for your commander or for your card?
Oh, you just never mind.
Okay. Somebody's going Hogak again. I can feel it.
Listen, big thanks for being on this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Anytime. I've got my complete set of Commander Social now. I've got all of the hosts have co-hosted with me on here. So I've got a little Commander Social trophy up in the CAD Pop trophy case, as it were. So huge thanks.
We'll have to send you a pin.
Oh, very much so. Can't wait. All right, so that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed the quick interview we did with Zach. And again, big thank you to Zach. Make sure to check out the show notes either below or wherever you're picking up the show, because they do a good show. They have great topics. Ryan and Zach's back and forth is always great. They're geared towards the social interactions and teaching new players. Their show is structured a little bit similar to this one in that they have different sections for learning the rules, and then they have a community kind of topic. So always lots of fun to talk with them, hang with them, listen to them. Of course, big thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com. They are the official sponsors of Commander Ad Populum. You can check out all of Fusion's sponsored content on themanabase.com. Great place to buy your cards. And of course, huge and giant thank you to all of the Patreon supporters at patreon.com/CADPopcast. You guys do make it possible. You do provide the topics, and you do provide the support that I need sometimes to make sure that I keep producing stuff that people want to listen to. So that is, of course, invaluable. For everybody else out there, start a conversation, get talking. Send me what you're talking about. If the community's talking about it, I want to talk about it. You can send those to at CADPopcast on Twitter, cadpopcast@gmail.com, or get a hold of me through Facebook Messenger through the Commander Ad Populum Facebook page. So until next week, everybody, I will see you next Wednesday.